Thanks to Waffle YouTube for suggesting Red Flowers. Red Flowers is a fast-paced VR parkour game where you have a sword in one hand, a hook in the other, and you are parkouring through cities, fighting multiple enemies and learning ways even to combo up your attacks as you can dash from enemy to enemy, which recharges if you hit enemies correctly so you can move really fast through these maps. It really reminds me of like Stride, but instead of a gun, you have a ninja sword. I've got to say, Red Flowers is a surprising amount of content for being free. There is future plan content they talk about, but the first realm has multiple levels. You go through the tutorial levels to learn how to play, and after you get through that, you are continuing to go level by level, seeing how you can do it faster, different routes you can take, and different ways to play the game. It's got just over a 4-star rating with over 220 ratings, 64% of that 5-star saying it's really good, fun, amazing, and I will say, from a lot of the game that I played, it works surprisingly well versus what I expected for it being free. There is 14% 1-star ratings with people saying it was too laggy, they couldn't get past certain parts, there wasn't enough gameplay. The one problem I noticed occasionally is when you'd strike an enemy, it would cause the frame rate to stutter a little bit, but outside of that, the game seemed to work surprisingly well. The parkour was exactly what you expected when you jumped onto a wall. You'd wall run like you thought. When you used your hook, it worked just right. I was really impressed with the game. It is rated mature, so keep that in mind. Your sword does work as a sword should, and you're sometimes slicing people in half. Keep that in mind if you're gonna check this game out, but I would highly recommend playing it. Peeps Are Gross actually suggested Meteoric. Meteoric VR is a game where controllers are optional. You are set above your planet, and it is your job to defend it from meteors, UFOs, lasers, and all kinds of incoming objects. If you have the controllers in your hands, you're flicking out towards with the triggers, firing lasers out of your hands, but the best way to play this is with actual hand tracking. You're putting your palms up almost as if you're telling someone to stop, and firing lasers out of your hands like Iron Man directly from your palms. There's different modes, missions, endless, multiplayer's coming. It's actually a lot of fun, but you end up feeling like you're kind of doing a weird workout game as a cat simulator because you end up going like this, almost like you're clawing on a scratching post or something. The game only has 15 ratings. It doesn't seem like it's very well known yet, but it is completely free and it's been out for over a year. 73% 5-star ratings, people saying they think it's worth paying for. It's the best hand tracking they found. It's great VR, and there's only 7% 3-star, no 2 stars, no 1 star. The only written review that is below a 5-star is someone who's using the controllers and saying they wish they had a better way to shoot the mirrors. So it seems like everyone is really enjoying this game. I wonder if they knew you could use hand tracking for this. It's free to check out, and if you haven't gotten a chance to find a game that's decent with hand tracking, this is a pretty good example. Sammy B said, check out Epic Roller Coasters. Every VR headset needs to have some kind of roller coaster for those people who say VR could never affect them, and you scare them with roller coasters. I don't always recommend that. But Epic Roller Coasters is a free roller coaster app, at least with the initial roller coasters that you get in it. When you open up the game, something important to note here is that you need to make sure it's going to be sorted potentially by featured or what's hot. You want to sort by what's unlocked so that you see which roller coasters you actually have access to. Otherwise, you might not even see them in the lists. There's a couple different modes. You can play a traditional roller coaster. There's a racing mode, which I really don't like. You're supposed to like designate the speed of the roller coaster without going flying off. But if you go flying off, it immediately cuts off your vision and doesn't let you see the roller coaster go flying or something. And then there's a shooter mode where you're shooting different targets around it. The game actually has a pretty low rating at about 3.4 stars, mostly because there's a lot of issues where people had paid originally for all future tracks, and then they didn't continue to give them those free tracks later and are charging them for the newer track packs. That said, if you get this game and stick to the free tracks, or be careful which tracks you buy specifically so that hopefully those will be future proof, this game can be a lot of fun. Although it does have comfort options, it really doesn't hold your hand, and some people will definitely find the tracks nauseating. I can say for sure, when you try and take selfie pictures or take pictures on roller coasters, it'll cause that frame rate to stutter, and that's the quickest way to make most people sick. So definitely don't recommend people take pictures while they're riding them if there's any chance that they're worried they're going to get sick. There's also a multiplayer function in this, and you can actually see your own meta avatar you've made, and people have given it great ratings there. They say there's great tracks and coasters, it's fun, but because of those multiplayer things, people say avoid the kids, avoid the issues with that. And of course, a lot of the low reviews are because when they got the game, they were supposed to continue to get the tracks when they paid once, and now there's all kinds of new tracks they're having to pay for. So personally, I'd say get it if you want to try the free tracks and probably stick to that. Diz Games 2 suggested a game I'd never heard of called Ultimate Snowball Fight. When I first jumped into this game to figure out what exactly it was, I immediately was like, this is Population 1 with snowballs. You are dropped into this battle in this round field with different structures, castle, towers, and you are tasked with fighting other real players or the bots that are walking around the course trying to kill you. You've got snowballs that you can throw at them. You can charge up your snowballs into snow bombs. There's different power-ups. There's these bars that you can eat to heal you that clearly look like a certain kind of energy bar bar you've probably eaten in the real world. You can climb up anything, you hold your hands out to glide. There's sleds that you can pick up that make you move super fast around the map. For a free game and with the graphic style, you would never expect that it works as well in the game as it actually does. You may have a hard time finding people in the lobbies, but there is leaderboards showing that people have played this. So if you can find enough friends that have quests, since this is free, you could all get and play together, and it's surprisingly decent. Although with that, I don't think it's well known because it's only got 16 ratings, giving it a 4-star. 68% of those are 5-star, and 19% 2 and 13% 1-star. Some people say rubbish, others say cool. VR first battle royale. And then that's pretty much the whole 5 written reviews that there are on it. I will say this game was a shocker to me, and if you have a crew that you can get in and play this together, I think you'd actually have a lot of fun. This is kind of a tricky one because Ninja Man 27 suggested a game called Slack, and when I went to App Lab to find it, the only game that showed up was a game called Highline, which is about slacklining. So I'm not quite sure this is exactly the game, but I got in and checked it out anyways because it is free, and Highline is like a slackline sim, if that were possible. For anyone who isn't familiar with slacklining, it's kind of like tightrope walking, but you have a really loose line instead of a tightrope, and you try and stay on this and walk from one end to the other. Well, in VR, it's combining a couple different mechanics to try and recreate that. The weirdest part of it, though, is that to move each foot, you use an analog stick to pivot your foot out and back in and set it on the slackline. The parts that make sense are when things start to get sketchy on the slackline, you have to lean your head, and you also may have to lean your arms to keep all of these elements together in one line. I've got to say, this game has the most beautiful skyboxes I've ever seen on the Quest 2 and the most tedious movement style. And I don't think anybody really knows about this game because it only has 6 ratings. 83% 5-star, 17% 2-star. The 2-star says it has potential. I love this idea, but the walking mechanics using the analog sticks is incredibly hard and not fun. But the other 2 5-stars saying, wow, exciting game. It's an interesting game that has some plot line that I was curious in. I wish it had an easy mode where I could just like walk across the slack line a little bit easier because I wanted to learn more about what was going on in the game with the main character Olivia, but trying to go across line and line and line in the game felt very tedious to me. If you get further, let me know in the comments what was going on. When Bagadude suggested a game called Squid Smack, I immediately thought to myself that this might be some kind of Gorilla Tag clone. I couldn't have been more wrong. This is a swimming simulator where you swim with your hands in a lighthearted multiplayer underworld exploration. As a squid, you can ink, smack, you can hide, and you're navigating your way to a shipwreck. There's currents, there's other squids, and of course, something that might eat you. This was created by just 2 people, husband and wife team. They say it's in early access right now. They want to hear your input about it, but they are planning on adding maps, features, treasures, and other things, of course, for people to play and do together. It's currently at about a 4.2 rating with 192 ratings, decently known. 66% of those are 5-stars. People say they love it, they love the community. It actually has nice people in this community for a free game, but of course, some lower reviews citing a whole bunch of different issues. Controls, not taking them the direction they want to, not taking them anywhere when they tried to swim. Some people said there was some random Easter messages put in there that they didn't appreciate, and then still some people saying that there are toxic kids in there. The gameplay and art style itself looks lighthearted and has me curious about it. Anyone out there who's ever tried it, what did you think about it? Beam3178 suggested a game called Cactus Cowboy Portal VR. Now, you might be familiar with the Cactus Cowboy games. One of them is free on PSVR 2. There's several of them on App Lab, and this one is shooting to be more like the game's Portal. It warns you immediately in the trailer, this game will probably make you motion sick, so keep that in mind if you're going to check it out. The Cactus Cowboy that we know has been kidnapped and now is imprisoned in a strange underground lab and fighting your way to try and get up to the surface with your revolvers. And maybe one of the lesser known ones in the series with only 61 ratings so far. 60% of those are 5-stars. People saying it's fun, it's like Portal, they really enjoy it. But some of the lower reviews saying it's a ripoff, saying that it's all around awful. The graphics, level design are not good, but enough positive reviews that it does seem like, especially if you're into the Cactus Cowboy series, it would be one worth checking out if you have your VR legs and it's not going to get you sick, or as the trailer tells you, accept it and become sick. Not recommended. Thanks to Angry Nooblets, who suggested the Driven demo to try out for free on the Quest. I was expecting something really bad when I first saw this, especially because the game didn't even have a trailer to watch, and I will say when I got in, I was surprised at how decent the racing looked in this game, how decent the other cars were, and the overall experience. This is a racing simulator on the Quest. The demo contains 3 different tracks that makes up 6 races and 4 cars with 3 variations that you can use on each of them. It's obvious there is a lot more that you can unlock if you are willing to pay for it at that point. The game actually uses your virtual hands to steer, so a lot of times people get frustrated with VR racing games when you end up using your analog stick, but because of that, the hand holding, it gets a little finicky at times, or you may get the wheel turned around and not realize it and have a hard time getting the wheel turned back to its regular upward position. I will say though, it has the gas as a trigger. It has a handbrake that works decently well. I actually had a lot of fun playing this, and after seeing all the reviews about Grid Legends and the way that it looked, I was surprised at how decently good looking the driven demo actually looked. 51 ratings puts it at about a 3.2 though, 43% 5-star and 27% 1-star, with some of the reviews saying it's a gem, it's very impressive, and others saying it's a good game, but it does have its issues. And weirdly, out of those 27% 1-star reviews, none of them wrote anything specifically about it. You have to go to the 3 stars to even see the not as good reviews, where people said the driving's okay, that it's getting there, and that this is a work in progress. If you've been looking for a racing game just to kind of drive around, have some fun, and you want it to be free, I would say Driven's actually worth checking out. I had a good time in it, and although I probably won't go back or buy the full game, it was an experience. Although the AIs are relentless when it comes to knocking you out, spinning you around, and they just show no shame in doing it to you and will cost you the race right at the end potentially. Mr. King suggested Tavern Tales Tabletop Adventures. This is currently a demo that you can try out, and I will say going into this, I had no idea what to expect, and even after being in it for a while, it's still not fully clear what this is. But this is basically a play space to go into VR and play your actual D&D games, but with a board that you can assemble with your own characters on it that you put in. It also has other areas in the room where there's a fire, there's an area to sit around and pretend you're having a pint of ale. The one thing about the atmosphere that was kind of bothering me is there was a fireplace, but there was no crackling sound, there was no sound effects whatsoever, and it was an interesting thing to walk around in and look at what could potentially be done with D&D, but it definitely seems like something's missing, or they have some more work to do to get this up there, or maybe you have to buy the full version. With only 19 ratings, it's at about a 3.2 stars with very mixed reviews. People saying they can't play it, it's terrible, it's not really a demo, can't figure out how to join others. Very few saying good game, and that they were able to then join other people and actually play a game with them. And people saying it's a good concept, but this just isn't quite there yet. It is something that looks like it could use more development, but it is an interesting idea to take the world of D&D and create something really visual and fun with it. Me personally, I think I still would just probably play Demio, but Tavern Tales is there. A longtime subscriber of ours, Black Market Honey, suggested a game called David. Now, you might remember this kind of genre of games from back in the day. There's mobile games like it, or there was even console games. It was a top-down shooter where you had a little spaceship that you would move back and forth. It would shoot up at the enemies that were coming towards you, and then there was power-ups that would give you like 2 weapons, 3 weapons, lasers, and all these different things as you try to get through these waves of enemies. It would help you get better as long as you didn't take damage. David seems like a VR version of that. Now, keep in mind, David is no longer free on App Lab, but it does have a 30-minute free trial, and then it's $9.99 if you want to keep it beyond that. I actually found this game really interesting because I really liked those old type of games, and it felt like it was bringing that retro feeling into VR. One controller is your main spaceship, and it has some gravity to it, so you can't just move your spaceship quickly from side to side. You move your spaceship and it kind of glides along where your hand is going. You're aiming, you're shooting at the enemy ships and the fleets and trying to take them down. Game was made by a company called Two Guys Production, yet funny thing, I swear it's one voice actor doing both voices. It seems like after a while they got tired of doing their accent they were doing on one, and it just kind of seems like someone talking back and forth to themselves. Besides that little detail, this actually is a really fun game. 62 ratings puts it at 4.5 stars. People saying it's totally awesome, so satisfying, really fun, with 77% 5-star ratings and only 3% 1-star. And the only written review 1-star says, worst game played, save your money or just open the window and chuck it out, worth $1 at a push. But some of the 2 stars saying there was crashing issues, no real progression, sluggish. I will say, if this game interests you and you're into these kind of like sci-fi wave shooter games, or the games I described, the old retro games, I'm gonna send a few of you on a quest. So for those of you who show up early to the videos, or for those of you who watch all the way to the end, I'm gonna just go ahead and give away 3 copies of this game, but I want you to really be interested in this game. I don't want to give it to people who are just like, eh. So if you're really interested, here's what I want you to do. Get the free trial of it, and you'll find out into the game what David's job was before all of this happened. The first 3 people who comment the word David, David's job, and then their Oculus username, that way I can send the gift directly to them on the Oculus store, I'll go ahead and buy 3 of you this. So this will be interesting to me too, since it's so far near the end of the video, and since this game's kind of obscure, I don't know if anyone will even take me up on this offer, but I'll be watching for 3 of you on that one. What other games out there are free that I haven't covered yet that you'd love to hear, talk about, or see me mention you in a video on? Leave them in the comments down below. I want to say thank you for coming out and being with me once again. I will see you in another reality.